In today's video, we're talking about upscalers on SteamOS and why it's time for Valve to invest in their own custom solution for Steam Deck and Steam Machine. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is Deck Ready, my channel all about Steam hardware. I hope you are having a great week playing a ton of video games. I was already working on this video for like the better part of a week to talk about the upscaling solution for the Steam Machine, and then this whole DLSS 5 situation blew out of control. If you haven't kept up with this, essentially NVIDIA announced DLSS 5 and it completely changed the look of the games that it was applying itself to. They showed it off with Resident Evil Requiem, Starfield, and Hogwarts Legacy. In Resident Evil, that was the most egregious for sure. The scene they took was from the beginning of the game. They showed before and after with a shot of Grace. And Grace before looks like someone who's going back to the location where her mom was murdered. She's a timid FBI investigator. She's sneaking around. It's survival horror themed. The DLSS 5 on version of Grace looks like on the way to Renwood from the FBI headquarters. She stopped to get her buccal fat removed and also a full makeup job at Sephora, and it also just raised the light level of the entire world around her. It completely removed the look and feel of the game. Hogwarts Legacy was less egregious but just looks weird overall. They applied it to an older character. It just added more wrinkles to her face, gave her a Mr. X sort of look, which I did not like. And then with Starfield, this one's a little bit, not that bad, I would say, because Starfield's overall art style is trying to look like real life but in the future, like a future memory or something. And I mean, there were tons of memes about how bad the NPCs looked in that game, and it fits the art style better to have a more realistic person, but it doesn't look like it has that Bethesda flavor at the end of the day. So 3 out of 3 have major problems ranging from bad to really bad. So thankfully, because DLSS is hardware locked, we're kind of safe from that on Steam hardware. Even if you build your own custom SteamOS PC, the NVIDIA support is so low that it's essentially non-existent. Oh, and before I get too deep into this, it would really help me out if you subscribed and set your notifications to all. Unless AMD is working on the exact same thing, which they very well might be, it's going to take a lot longer for AMD to get it. And based on the feedback to the DLSS 5 reveal, I think NVIDIA is probably going to go back to the drawing board on this entire situation because they stepped in a mess. They said the developers signed off on it, then it came out that maybe the executives did, but the developers had no say. It was not a good reveal, and that was shown in NVIDIA's stock prices. So overall, objectively, I think this was a bomb. But the reason I was already working on a video about upscaling on the Steam Deck and the Steam Machine is because A, Valve is being very cagey about what the FSR solution is going to be on the Steam Machine, and people are kind of assuming things that are good for sure, but since Valve hasn't talked about it, I kind of wanted to put some opinion out there to maybe give them some ideas of why I think this is important. And B, the upscaling world has changed massively over the past year. So when it comes to upscaling on the Steam Deck, it's pretty much essential at this point for any big modern AAA game to use upscaling to get the game to run at all on the Steam Deck. And you do have a lot of choices, right? Like you've got FSR from AMD, you've got XeSS from Intel, you've got TSR for Unreal Engine 5, and then at the bare minimum, you have TAA or the built-in FSR with SteamOS, which is like 1.0. And honestly, not worth using and kind of difficult to figure out, but you do have a lot of choices. And I like the way the Steam Deck uses it because it's how it was originally supposed to be used, right? Like when it was announced, it was like this new technology that would keep your older GPU relevant for longer, which sounded great at the time. And immediately people were like, oh, developers are going to start using it as a crutch to ship their games faster, unoptimized, and it's really not going to make any of a difference. Depending on the game, that definitely happened. But there are a lot of other games that are well optimized, and when you use FSR, you get good results. The problem is, officially speaking, the Steam Deck caps out at FSR 3, which while better than FSR 2 and 1 for sure, it's noticeable like night and day. When you start comparing it to other options, it falls behind pretty fast and pretty hard. So one question is, why doesn't Valve just build FSR 4 into SteamOS? That would fix every problem, because while it's still not as good as DLSS, it's pretty damn good. And the answer is kind of complicated, of course, like everything in the PC or gaming world these days, but it really boils down to the fact that DLSS was made to be used with specific hardware, aka NVIDIA cards, and AMD's FSR was made to be used on any GPU. It's software-based instead of hardware-based, and FSR 4 was AMD's first step towards hardware-based upscaling. So while you can put it on older cards that have RDNA 3 architecture or RDNA 2 architecture like the Steam Deck and Steam Machine, you're not going to get great results because you don't have that hardware level encoding going on that gives you a performance increase in addition to that resolution and anti-aliasing bump. So you're getting a better image, but it's really really like running the game at native resolution in terms of performance. So it's a complicated issue to solve, which is why it's taking so long for Valve to solve it, but it's become more and more dire that they solve it basically over the past year. And the reasoning for that is other platforms have been working on this a lot over the past year or so. Like the Switch 2, it has a very old version of DLSS, but even though it's an old version, it works a lot better than what we have on the Steam Deck. If you compare Chronos the New Dawn on Steam Deck and Switch 2, it's very similar looking in terms of settings and resolution, but it ends up looking better on the Switch 2 because it has that older version of DLSS. Same thing goes for Resident Evil Requiem. Same for really any game that implements DLSS on the Switch 2, and then when you're playing it on the Steam Deck, you use FSR. So like you get a cleaner image and roughly the same performance, sometimes a little bit better on the Switch 2, which is a problem for Valve. On the PS5, it's a little bit murkier. On the regular PS5, you've got the same FSR as the Steam Deck, so like FSR 3, and even though you're starting with a higher base input resolution and going to a higher output resolution, it scales exactly the same. So you're getting the same artifacting, shimmering, bad looking hair, rough edges, all that stuff that you see on the Steam Deck using FSR 3, you also see on the regular PS5. But when you throw the PS5 Pro into the mix, things get a little more interesting because that has the option to use FSR, but it also has custom upscaling tech, which is PSSR. Now for the first year, unless you were playing a first-party Sony game, PSSR was bad. Games like Metal Gear Solid Delta, Silent Hill F, Silent Hill 2, any Unreal Engine 5 game that took advantage of PSSR looked worse on the PS5 Pro than the regular PS5. So while you got slightly better frame rates, the overall image was worse. But then a couple weeks ago, we got the 2.0 upgrade, and across the board, it's awesome. It's still not on the level of DLSS, but it's close enough to where you don't feel like you're missing out by playing on the PS5 Pro with PSSR versus a PC or Xbox Series X or something, and it works really well. And the interesting thing is, even though they were able to use these FSR features and get better performance, they're not doing it on an RDNA 4 chip. That's not what the PS5 Pro has. And finally, when it comes to Xbox, it's also murky. Like right now, it's using FSR 3, but eventually when the Project Helix comes out, Microsoft has said they're working on their own OS level upscaler that will be automatic, and if it works as well as they say it does, it's going to be in the same ballpark as FSR 4 or DLSS. So it's going to be good enough for Xbox users or Windows PC users. So in the span of about a year or so, we went from a situation where everyone was on par with each other to Valve kind of being the odd man out because they're using older hardware and they don't have a custom upscaling solution. They're just using what AMD allows them to use right out of the box, and it's not good enough in 2026, and I think it's going to be a problem for the Steam Machine. I brought this up on the channel a few times over the past few months since the Steam Machine was announced, and every time I bring it up, someone in the comments authoritatively says Valve is confirmed to be working on their own custom upscaling solution. So I put my head down, I did some research, I talked to some people who have behind the scenes info, and they're all just assuming that that's what Valve is working on. But if you read interviews that Valve did around the Steam Machine's announcement, you read into what they said around GDC, they're not specifically saying that they're going to put FSR 4 on the Steam Machine, which is fine because of the performance overhead required, but they're also not denying that they're working on a custom upscaling solution. They say they'll talk about it closer to launch, which is evidence enough for me that they are working on it. I just think it's essential that we see this before the Steam Machine comes out, which, you know, there's no release date, so they've got a wide window there. And also, this isn't something that they say they're starting to work on before the Steam Machine comes out, and then we have to wait 6 months to a year to get it, because everyone else has already figured this out. They're not working on it. I'm sure they're working on the next versions of all of this stuff, but what all the other devices out there currently have is better than what we currently have on the Steam Deck, and if we keep this status quo, exactly what we will have on the Steam Machine. So, but overall, the good thing is we have no reason to doubt Valve at all. There have been plenty of situations just like this over the past few years, and, you know, Valve has always figured it out, and when it comes to things we didn't even know we wanted, like being able to play Android games on Steam or vice versa, or run SteamOS on ARM chips, Valve figured that out and didn't even talk about it. They were funding that stuff secretly and privately behind the scenes for like a decade, just seeing where the winds were blowing and correctly guessing that. When it comes to upscalers, that's more public, and I don't think it's something that Valve would overlook, but I just wanted to put it on camera to really signify how essential it is that we don't have to rely on FSR 3 on the Steam Machine and hopefully the Steam Deck going forward. But yeah, that about brings me to the end of the video. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and the DLSS 5 situation just really made me want to make the video even more. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know in the comments. Also subscribe, set your notifications to all. Anyway, guys, as always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.